What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski and I am back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. And in today's video, I'm going to be answering a lot of questions that a lot of people have been asking me over the last week or so about every little thing about adventure mode, basically on the team building and what to really expect going into these boss fights. So if you guys don't know about treasure map, you guys should know a little bit by now, but you have to face 5 different bosses, including the boss Mihawk, included in those 5 bosses in treasure map. So you need to make sure that you have 5 different teams, because once you use a team against one of the bosses, any unit that you use in that team cannot be reused against another boss. So a lot of people are really confused about how they should be building their team. So in this video, I'm going to have a bunch of different team examples that you guys can take note from, and if you guys don't have the units, you can go ahead and switch and change depending on what you have in your character box. Also, before we get into the teams, I'm going to go through each of the 5 bosses and basically explain to you guys what you should be expecting heading into treasure map number 1 on global against Mihawk. So hopefully you guys do enjoy this video. If you guys do enjoy it, make sure to smack the like button down below, because this video did take a very long time to edit all together. So hopefully you guys do go on to enjoy it. But without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So the first boss that we are going to have a look at is going to be against Gecko Moria. Now, each of these bosses, you don't actually have to fight them in the specific order that I'm going to be showing you guys in the video. You can fight them in whichever order that you like. You get to choose which ones you want to fight in whatever order. So don't take this as like the exact order you have to go in to fight the bosses. So first one we're going to have a look at is Gecko Moria. Gecko Moria has 362,500 health, and with each time you defeat treasure map, whenever you enter into the next treasure map at level 2, he will gain an additional 19,937 health. So after each time you defeat the treasure map, each boss will get slightly more health and slightly more attack. So Gecko Moria starts off at 3436 attack, and he gains 60 additional attack per level of treasure map. His preemptive attack will go ahead and slot seal your entire crew for 10 turns. So utilizing a team that relies on getting matching orbs or a certain type of orb in order for their attack boost to activate is definitely not the best bet against Gecko Moria. So guys like Rob Lucci 6+ and Neko are not very good legends or leads to run against Gecko Moria in this specific circumstance here, because you're not going to be able to use your orbs. Then also, he doesn't actually do anything else aside from the fact he has an interrupt, where if you go ahead and delay him, he will remove all positive buffs from your side of the crew. So that's something to take note of as well. But he doesn't actually do anything else. He doesn't do anything else at any other health threshold, so he's pretty easy to beat. He just is pretty tanky. He has a decent amount of health, and you know, the more you play treasure map, the more stronger he's going to get. So he's going to stack up health pretty quickly. So that is something to take note of as well. So now let's move on to the next treasure map boss. The next boss that we are going to have a look at is going to be against Boa Hancock. Now, she starts off at 281,680 HP, and she will gain an additional 15,492 health after every treasure map level. Her attack power is 3,216, and she gains 56 attack per treasure map level. Now, she also is surrounded by a bunch of adds. These characters, I believe, up until level 15 have about 100,000 health, and I don't know if they actually keep increasing their health. If I had to guess, I would say they would. So the mob characters will additionally keep growing in health after every single treasure map level. And she has a preemptive attack that will go ahead and give you anti-recovery for 19 turns, and she also has a delay protector for 98 turns. Then, under 20% health, she'll go ahead and bind your entire crew for 20 turns. So definitely don't get her below 20, otherwise you basically lose at that point. She gets 20 turns of free attacks against your crew. You definitely don't want that. But before we actually move on, big thing here is what I would ideally suggest to you guys is bring someone who does a lot of AoE damage, and on the boosted units, the best characters for that are going to be 6+ Ace or 6+ Kuzan. Now, if you don't have either of those two units, you can go ahead and bring a friend Kuzan or a friend Ace, and that will be quite fine. If you're going to use Kuzan, you know, he only does 100,000 fixed damage to all enemies, so after a certain treasure map level, that will become kind of, you know, not really effective because they're still going to survive. But if you have Ace, he actually does a lot more damage, and if you already have Ace yourself, you'll have double Ace, which will give you a substantial amount of AoE damage in order to go ahead and take down all of the mob characters. Then you can focus all of your attack power down on Boa. She doesn't actually have that much health in comparison to all of the other bosses, so she's actually pretty easy to take down with a Stronghold Ace unit on your crew. The next treasure map boss that we're going to be overviewing is going to be Bartholomew Kuma. Kuma has 455,000 health, and he'll gain an additional 25,025 health per treasure map level. He starts off with an attack power of 10,052. He gains an additional 176 attack per treasure map level. He has a preemptive attack that will go ahead and give him a debuff protector for 98 turns, so you cannot delay him or reduce his defense, and he will also randomly blow away one of your bottom row characters. Then after every 4 turns, he will go ahead and then blow away one random unit on your crew. So it will start off at the bottom row, which he did with his preemptive attack. The next unit he blows away will be someone from the middle row, and if he does survive after another 4 turns, he'll blow away someone from your top row, and he basically keeps cycling between bottom, middle, and then top until you have no units left on your crew. Then you basically just die at that point. But he does deal a substantial amount of damage. However, you can go ahead and fight Kuma in the middle of the treasure map, and if you fight him on your way to the final battle, he will have reduced health at the end. So ideally, what I would suggest is to focus on attacking Kuma every time that you can find him inside the treasure map, so that when you reach the final stage, Kuma's going to have not much health left at all, because he's probably going to be one of the most annoying ones, because after quite a few treasure maps, he will have a lot of health, and he's going to be very, very annoying to take down, considering you're only going to have 5 units on your crew every time you enter that room against Kuma. So that's what I would suggest to you guys in that specific circumstance as well. So make sure you don't use someone that does rely on having a certain amount of characters on your crew, like Legend Bato, who you need 6 strikers on your crew in order to go ahead and utilize the damage against Kuma. Otherwise, you know, it's going to be a pretty bad time for you. So let's go ahead and move on to the final boss, and then let's talk about Mihawk himself. The final boss that we're going to be talking about is going to be Doflamingo. Now, Doflamingo has actually a double of himself on the field. So there is a Dex version and there is an Int version. Both of them have the exact same amount of health. They have 271,800 health, and they will gain each about 15,000 health after every single treasure map level. And they each have an attack power of 3,320, which they will gain an additional 60 attack per treasure map level. Now, they do have an interrupt where if you go ahead and defeat a Doflamingo, the other one will revive another Doflamingo to take its place, but he only does that once. So what you would really want to do is try and take out both Doflamingos at the exact same time, and then you basically just win the map. Also, when his health falls below 50%, he'll go ahead and deal 50% of your HP to your crew, and then one unit will be binded for 3 turns. So don't get him below 50. What I would try and do here is to basically just have some specials that will allow you to do a lot of burst damage, and then take down both the Dex and the Int Doflamingo at the exact same time. So having some Psi and Strength characters on your crew against Doflamingo is going to be your best bet for taking him down. So now let's discuss the final battle against Mihawk. So this is the stage 4 Mihawk. The actual fight against Mihawk has 5 stages, but on stage 4 you have to fight his unevolved version. So this version here at stage 4 has approximately 700,000 health, and he gains 71,000 HP after every treasure map level, and he has an attack power of 3,664 with an additional 192.5 attack per additional treasure map level. Now, his preemptive attack will go ahead and make it so that your Psi and Int characters are going to be special binded for 10 turns, and he will cut your health by 10%. So ideally, in this battle against Mihawk, you want to have someone that can resist special bind, or you want to literally go ahead and not bring Psi or Int characters, which is, you know, really what is suggested, because they really are trying to force you to use a Lucy team, which is the best team for taking on Mihawk, honestly, and it gives you the most points. So if you don't have Lucy, that's fine. You can still run a captain with a friend Lucy, and that will be quite good. You'll still get a very, very substantial amount of damage output from that. But, you know, it really depends on what you have in your character box. Also, after turn 2, he will deal a 10% health cut, and then that is on top of his normal attack, so he'll cut your health by 10% and then he'll attack. So, you know, that's something you need to take note of as well. But the stage 4 Mihawk is relatively easy in comparison to his final stage, which we will talk about right now. Stage 5 Mihawk will now have a 2-turn cooldown, and he has 1.366 million health, and he will have an additional 71,830 per treasure map level, and he has an attack power of 11,000 with an additional 192.5 per treasure map level. His preemptive attack will give him a delay protection for 98 turns, and he has a defense up for 5 turns, and he'll also randomly shuffle your orbs and give you a 20% health cut. So he has a bunch of different preemptive debuffs and buffs to himself and to your crew. So you got to take note on that. He actually is quite annoying with all these different buffs, and he also randomly shuffles your orbs. So don't go ahead and try and rely on keeping orbs in stage 4, because he will randomly shuffle your orbs. After that first attack, he will give you a 10% cut, and he will also enrage himself as well. And then when he is ready to attack you and he's below 50%, he does 16,500 damage to your crew. And if you get him below 50% from a special ability, he's going to recover all the way back up to 80%, approximately 80% of his health, and then he'll randomly shuffle your orbs as well. Now, on top of this, Mihawk actually has a new barrier that will apply to him. So what this new barrier does is when he activates his preemptive attack, he gives himself a barrier, but this barrier is not like any other barrier that we've seen thus far in One Piece Treasure Cruise. What this barrier is it gives him an additional health bar. Now, this additional health bar is basically just, you know, topping off on his own health. So it's 1,366,000, and then it's an additional smaller percentage of his health on a barrier. And this means that all your normal attacks will have to deal through a certain amount of HP first, and then you can break through the barrier. However, you still can go ahead, bring someone like Blackbeard, and that will still avoid the barrier as well. And any unit special that state that it avoids defensive buffs or defensive effects from the enemy, that will still go through the barrier as well, like Colosseum Lucy, whose special ability does 20% health cut through a barrier. So that's why Colosseum Lucy is very, very recommended for this final battle here, especially if you have a Legend Lucy captain. It works extremely, extremely well. Okay, so now let's talk about some specific team compositions that you guys might be able to build in order to take on each of these bosses. Now, I'm not going to really suggest too much to you guys which teams are good for which specific maps, but I'm just going to show you guys a bunch of teams that I've created that you guys can go ahead and use. If you guys don't have some of these units, that's fine. You can replace them for other units that you might have in your character box. Also, after we have a look at all of the teams, there will be a list of all of the point booster characters that you can potentially choose from. Remember, you don't have to have a point booster unit on your crew. It just helps to do so, because then it will give you a higher chance of getting more points, which means that you can go ahead and level up and rank up a lot easier compared to the rest of the other players. So the first team that we're going to have a look at here is a Gear 4 fighter team. So we have Double Gear 4, of course. Every unit that we're going to be talking about in all of these teams are all point boosters, so it's all good. So Double Gear 4 with Neo Sabo. Neo Sabo could definitely be replaced by 6+ Sabo, depending on where you have him in your character box or where you have him on another team. Because remember, a character on a team cannot be used then again on another team. So you can't overlap characters between teams, so that's something you have to take very, very big note on as well. Like, if you're going to run a slasher team, you can't have 6+ Rayleigh on the team, and then you can't use also 6+ Rayleigh on a fighter team. So we've got 6+ Rayleigh as well. We've got the Login Koala, which is actually a decent unit, and you've also got Jesus Burgess. So this team's actually really nice because you can go ahead and delay the enemy with Rayleigh, and then you go ahead and use Jesus Burgess for a conditional boost. So that is definitely a thing that you could possibly do. Although you got to think that you know, that is a long time to really stall for all these characters. All these characters will have -3 cooldown, and if you have cooldown sockets, it's an additional 2. So technically 5 turns less cooldown, but Jesus Burgess has a very, very high cooldown. So I don't really know if you want to do that. Maybe on the very high levels of treasure map, like where Moria has millions and millions of health, you might need to do that. Or just on any other single boss that you can use a delay on, it might be really, really good. But the thing is, Gear 4 does so much damage with his special, and you also have Neo Sabo as well. So with this team alone, you're going to be doing a ton of damage to whatever boss you are taking on. So that's also really, really good. As I said, you can replace Neo Sabo with 6+ Sabo because you have the Login Koala and the 2 Gear 4s and Sabo himself, who are all free spirit, and you can potentially use that as a type boost for your crew. As I said, you don't have to have all of these units on your crew. You can replace them out for non-point booster characters to just help out your crew all in all, and that is definitely a good thing to do as well if you are lacking some of the point boosters. The next team that we're going to have a look at is a striker team. Now, this utilizes the Bato ship, and I know a lot of people are saying, why are you using the Bato ship on a Necro team? That is definitely not the best way to do it. However, the thing is, the Bato ship gives you 1 less cooldown, which will enable your team to be a lot faster. And if you do own Shirahoshi, this is going to be perfect for your Necro team, because you can go ahead and use only the stage 1 Shirahoshi to give your adjacent orbs into Rainbow, which is going to be amazing for your crew. And then you can go ahead and use the Raid Virgo, who is an orb booster. So this team works really, really well. It does a ton of damage, and just will work against literally all of them except for Moria. Like, this will be really good to take on any of the bosses except for Moria, because of the fact that Moria will seal your orbs, so you don't get any orbs on your crew whatsoever against Moria. So I definitely would not suggest Nekomamushi for that, unless if you're going to run Bato as a captain, then that could potentially work. But anyways, this team's very solid. Because you got Neko with a 3.75 boost, and he gives a health boost as well. You got Shirahoshi, who can heal and also give you matching orbs. You got Bato, basically as a stat stick. He can be replaced by whoever you want. You've got the Toy Soldier, who is basically there just to sit there as a point booster. He does have quite nice utility, but you're not really going to be using him that often. And then you have Raid Virgo being the orb booster for striker type team. So this team is a very solid team. As I said, you can switch out characters that you do have in replace for other characters, but this is just showing you guys the most optimal teams if you have all of the point booster characters. So now let's move on to the next team. The next treasure map team that we're going to be looking at is the Powerhouse team. So this utilizes a double 6+ Lucci captain and the Zunisha ship, of course. Then you've got access to Colosseum Kyros, who gives you matching orbs adjacently, and if you're above 70% health, he gives you a 1.5 orb boost, so that is amazing for the striker teams. You've also got 6+ Whitebeard, basically as a stat stick. You have the Fortnite Fukaboshi, who if you did max him out is actually quite good. He's kind of like a mini Raid Sabo, which can be quite useful against certain bosses. And then you've got Raid Sanji as well, who is a type booster if you do end up, stalling for his special to be ready. And against some of the more difficult treasure map levels, that might be really good to save up and stall for Sanji's special, so you can have a 2x type boost and a 1.5 orb boost, and that will be great. And especially because Rob Lucci gives you a lot of matching orbs just with his captain ability and his special ability alone, it works very well. So this team is a very solid team all round and can basically be used against any single of the bosses. Although again, against Mori, you don't get matching orbs, so he's basically just going to be sticking as a 2.5 times multiplier captain, which still can deal lots of damage, but it makes Kyros useless on the team, and also it doesn't really give you the most damage output against Moria himself. So I would use him on any other boss except against Moria. Moving on to the fourth team, we have a slasher team which utilizes double Raid Mihawk captain. Now, if you guys were lucky enough to pull the Dex Zoro, the point booster Dex Zoro, he can also be used as a captain for a slasher type team, and he gives you a lot of points from that. However, it is best to use the very high point boosters against the final boss, because the final boss gives you the most points, and if you have the higher multiplier, you obviously will get more points from that. But if you guys don't want to do that, you can use Zora as a slasher captain, and that will give you a substantial amount of points against some of the bosses. But the subunits here, we have the Dex Recruit Cavendish, and that will work really well in tandem with 6+ Shanks, because you'll have 6+ Shanks to reduce the enemy defense, and then you can go ahead and use Cavendish for the conditional boost. You've also got Diamante there, who can give you some matching orbs as well, and then you've also got the Fortnite Brook just kind of as a filler unit for your team. But this team actually can deal a lot of damage, especially because you got the double Raid Mihawk, which can give you basically a 50% health cut to the enemy, which is pretty substantial. And obviously all the units on this crew are all point boosters, so obviously this team's going to be great against any of the bosses really. However, I think that against some of the more higher health bosses like Kuma, this might struggle a little bit, because I believe Kuma does have a little bit of defense, and it might be annoying considering if he, potentially pops away one of your characters that you really need for your crew. So I really wouldn't suggest it against Kuma. However, against Moria, he might give you, he might be really good, but I'm not really too sure. But honestly, this is a really powerful team, and it is pretty easy to make. I mean, Shanks was available as one of the free legends, so you guys might have been able to pick him from one of the free legends. But all in all, this team's pretty solid, and let's move on to the fifth team. Now we move on to the shooter squad. So we have either 6+ Ace and Cruzan captain with the exact same unit as your other captain, and then for the sub units you have Cruzan or Ace, whichever one you used as the captain, you use the other one as a sub, along with 6+ Usopp, 6+ Boa, and also Fortnite Giola. This team is gonna be 100% the hardest one for people to make. If you guys don't have Cruzan or you don't have Stronghold Ace, that really sucks, because this team is amazing, as I mentioned before, for the Boa Hancock boss, because having the ability to use AoE damage is so good against clearing those mob characters. So ideally for the more difficult treasure map levels, I would suggest running Ace as the captain, because Ace can go ahead and deal more damage AoE wise to all of the mobs, which will be able to clear them out a lot easier. But for the early stages, Cruzan will be better because he gives you more damage output a lot more quickly, and you can clear the early stages a lot easier using Kuzan as the captain. But it really does depend on what you have in your character box and what you really want to do. But this team is a very, very solid team, and I would not suggest to run this against any other boss except for Boa. Just that AoE damage is so important for clearing that reasonably quickly. But now let's move on to the 6th team. Now this team here, the final team we're going to be talking about before we talk about the main boss team, is the Free Spirit team. So this utilizes double 6+ Sabo captain. Now the sub units for the Free Spirit team are very, very limited because there aren't actually that many good Free Spirit units that are the point booster characters. However, if you guys do have these units, you can potentially run this team. You've got 6+ Boa, Gear 4, the Fortnite Brook, and also the Login Koala. Now as you can see, a lot of these units will overlap with some of the other teams, so you don't really need to run this team in particular. I would definitely suggest all the other teams over the Free Spirit team. However, you do have Sabo, who is your type booster for your crew, so this team actually might not be too bad overall, but I really wouldn't suggest this team. As I said, the first 5 teams that I suggested are definitely a lot better. However, this team is still quite solid. You know, you still have a lot of damage output. 2.75 base is quite good. You got Gear 4 to potentially give you a lot more matching orbs for your crew, but he only works for fighters, remember. He only gives fighters matching orbs, so Boa and also Brook will not get matching orbs from Gear 4's ability. Login Koala also can provide a mini type boost for your crew. Boa Hancock can actually give you some orbs as well, and would ideally be the better type booster because she boosts also quick and psi units, and will also give you some matching orbs as well. So Boa or Sabo as your type booster work really, really well for this team, but you don't get as much damage output overall with this team. Like, even the Mihawk team will overall give you more damage because you've got the 2 health cutters from Mihawk, so that works really, really well. But overall, it really depends. As I said, it keeps coming down to what you have in your character box. If you have the point boosters, this team can work, but it really does depend on what you really want to run. Now, the final team that we're going to be discussing is going to be the Lucy team. So this will be the team that you are going to run against the final boss, Mihawk. Now, if you have the point booster Buggy and the point booster Zora, you're absolutely set, and you can get some of the most craziest multipliers in the entire game, especially if you can utilize a friend Buggy with a Lucy captain. Like, you can get some crazy stuff because you can go ahead and run a friend Buggy and your own Buggy, so you get 2 units on your crew that are 2 times point boosters, and with that sort of crew you can get up to like a 13 times point multiplier, which is absolutely mind-boggling. You can get some crazy points by utilizing the Buggy as a friend captain, and against some of the early stages it would be pretty recommended to do so, because obviously against some of the earlier stages they're not going to have as much health, so they are really easy to take down. Remember, all of the point booster characters all have stat increases and cooldown reductions, so they're going to be doing more damage to these bosses, so you don't have to worry about that as much. But this team utilizes double Lucy with a Colosseum Lucy sub who is perfect for this fight. You've got 6+ Law basically sitting there as a point booster, because you got to remember 6+ Law is a 1.35 point booster, the same as Legend Lucy, so utilizing both of them on the same crew is definitely ideal. And then we've got the point booster Zora and Buggy, because those guys are just amazing. They have specials that can counter what the treasure map boss has, and also they are the highest point boosters in the entire game for this treasure map, so you obviously want to use them against the final boss to get the most points out of it. But what if you don't have Legend Lucy? Like, a majority of people don't have Legend Lucy, so what you can potentially still do is you can still run the Colosseum Lucy as your potential captain, or you can run a non-point boosting captain that will still give you some really, really nice damage, like Legend Cavendish, or you can still run Legend Blackbeard, or any other rainbow unit that gives you a rainbow boost and is also either a strength, dex, or quick unit. Because remember, the stage 4 boss will special silence, special bind Psi and Int characters, so you don't really want to be bringing Psi or Int characters to the final boss against Mihawk. So as I mentioned, Cavendish Legend is great, Legend Blackbeard is great because you can hit through the barriers. You can still potentially use Kuzan. If you didn't use Kuzan in one of the other mini boss fights, you can use him as your captain with a Legend Lucy friend, and that will still work as well. It really does come down to what you have in your character box, but still Legend Lucy is obviously going to be the best friend captain to utilize against this boss Mihawk. Now, as I said, if you have your own Lucy, you can potentially run a friend Buggy, and that will give you the most points. It does, as I said, come down to what you have in your character box. Now, before we end this video, guys, here is a checklist of every single point booster in the entire game for Treasure Map 1 versus Mihawk, and they are all listed in their separate classes, starting from Fighter, Slasher, Striker, Shooter, Free Spirit, Cerebral, Powerhouse, and driven. So you can go ahead and use this and basically cross off characters once you start building teams, and then you can see which characters are left so you can build teams from, so that you don't overlap certain characters in your team building. So this is going to be very, very useful for people that still want to build their own teams. Very, very nice to have, so you can start crossing off units that you don't have and start crossing off units that you use on your teams, so that you can see what units are left still to use against the bosses in the treasure map number 1. So this is going to conclude this video, guys. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, and if you guys did enjoy it, make sure to smack the like button down below. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post on my channel, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. But other than that, guys, I will see you guys within the next video.